Hi there, and welcome back to another edition of ScaleUp Radio, the podcast inspired by the Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System and designed to make navigating our scale-up journeys that little bit easier by learning from others' experiences. I'm Kevin Brent, and today I'm thrilled to have Becky Benfield-Humberstone, founder of the Brand Artisan, joining us. Becky shares her deep insights into branding that goes beyond just the logo, explaining how effective branding encompasses everything from visuals to voice, creating a compelling, emotionally resonant experience for our customers. And we'll explore her unique branding process, discussing the importance of starting with the why of a business, understanding target audiences and how these elements converge to forge a distinctive brand entity. And we'll also dive into her entrepreneurial journey from crafting model horses to branding consultancy, highlighting her approach to pricing based on value and her tips on navigating challenges like setting up a brand without direct competitors in many respects. And plus discover how Becky builds a team culture centered on passion and alignment with the business's goals. So you're going to love this episode, and make sure you don't miss any future episodes by subscribing to ScaleUp Radio wherever you like to listen to your podcast. And you can also nominate a guest for ScaleUp Radio if you know someone with an interesting story. You can find out how in the show notes. So for now, join Becky and myself for a jam-packed session full of actionable insights on how to scale up and make your brand stand out. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted today to be joined by Becky Benfield-Humberstone. So welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Thank you, Kevin. It's lovely to be here.
And your business is the Brand Artisan. So tell us, what's that all about?
So the Brand Artisan is actually it's a branding academy, consultancy and micro branding agency, sort of devoted to empowering and supporting sort of entrepreneurs or solopreneurs in creating a remarkable brand. So it's all about the brand. That's what I specialize in.
Okay, and what makes you different? Because and I guess we're all bombarded with marketing type messages and how people can help us get leads. And so from a marketing agency point of view, where do you sit as a brand artisan? What makes you different?
Yeah, so what I'm about is actually sort of taking brand back to the beginning. So actually almost handcrafting it so you can see sort of that time and craftsmanship and the dedication in it, rather than sometimes when you see some brands nowadays, you sort of can see the sort of the AI conceived sort of aspect to it. So mine is the opposite. So it is about literally taking that time to create a brand that reflects, the business or whatever you're trying to build, but also it's how it projects itself. It is about creating connections with its audience, organically growing, it's just something with heart, really, if that makes sense. It's just having that, creating it a multifaceted brand that has personality and depth, really.
So help
how to do that?
Yes, but also first of all, because I think there's so many people talk about so many different things in branding and marketing, and we could think of a brand as being our logo, and that's it.
That's usually the common, yes, that's what everybody perceives as in it. It's, you've got a logo, that's it, I'm off, good to go.
Yeah.
Which
so
will get you so far, indeed.
Yeah. Where do you take it? What are you getting us to think about beyond just the logo's included, I'm sure, but what else are we thinking about here?
So I like to sort of start really right at the beginning, strip everything back. So it's literally sort of pinning it down to some key questions, why are you doing it? What's the why? What's the purpose? And who's it for? Who are the audience or the customers, and what do they want? What are you solving? And then how do you bring those two together? How do you make it happen? So I really sort of take the time to sort of get people to think about, what is it they're doing and why are you doing it and where do you want to go? And then we start to build around those sort of questions. So then we look at sort of, what makes you different? Like you were saying, asking me, I refer to those as like sort of brand gems, those little nuggets of things that what makes it different or unique. Do you have a different approach, or is it a different sort of perspective? Looking at those sort of things, and then obviously you blend into that, your stories and the tales and all those sort of things that you want to sort of how you get across your message as well. And then obviously, as you say, logo does come into it. You've got the visual side of it, and that covers, not just your logo, but the colors, but also like the imagery you use, and even like I was to say, the fonts, and then you go into sort of words and then the word choice and the personality, the tone, the voice. So you see, once you start on one bit, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time you sort of reach the end of that sort of branding sort of framework of how you build it, you've got a brand that's sort of multi sort of layered almost, but like a trifle, I suppose, in a weird way. Do you know what I mean? The deeper you go down, the best bits, you get everything in the layer sort of thing. So
right, but they all work well together and support each other.
Exactly, yeah, like a good old trifle. It doesn't matter which bit you get, but you still get that great taste and that big smile that you're on your face, really. So no, that's what I'm about. So it's taking the time to literally sort of work through all those different layers, and also getting them all to work together. So I specialize in branding, but when I say branding, it's branding over not just the actual brand, but how that reflects to marketing and copywriting as well. You see, because a lot of people do, they build a brand, but then don't always connect the brand to marketing. So you get this sort of dissonance between the two. So my sort of specialism is how you connect that brand over and through all the different sort of specialisms.
Okay. And can you give us some examples, whether they be from your own portfolio or whether they be from brands that we might recognize, of ones that you would say, that's what we're talking about. That's a consistent, really good approach to branding?
So I quite like Disney. It's one of my favorites because when you think of Disney, it's, again, multi-layered, isn't it? Like if you go and stay in any of their sort of theme parks or in the hotels, everything's branded. Like the wake up calls in the morning is from like Goofy or Mickey or whatever. Again, that's branding, is in action sort of thing. Even down to the menus and how the decoration, again, that's all branding, or how it all comes together. So it's about, branding is about how you bring everything together to create an emotional connection with your audience. Something that resonates, something that's memorable, so they can clearly remember that experience. That's what it's about at the end of the day.
And I guess, as you pick Disney, because that's, there's a fundamental core purpose to Disney, which is, I think they've defined it as to make people happy. That's the
happiest place on earth. That's the one. Yeah.
There you go. So what you're saying is that flows through everything that they're doing.
Every touch point, every opportunity is the brand has its moment sort of to shine almost. You could just send, like, for example, in their hotels or where they stay, you could just kit it out in their company colors and that's it. But they take it that step further. The rugs are a certain shape. It's like an Easter egg, isn't it? How many Mickeys, the ears, how many can you spot, and all their things. It's those little touches that just make the difference and then sort of elevate that brand even further than the normal.
And who's your ideal customer? What kind of business or person?
It's more of a person, actually. I don't niche by industry. I niche by people. So I like to work with people that have those big ideas. So I work with people that generally have an idea and literally come with the idea and say, do it for me. And that's what I do. So I will take that idea, whether it's, for example, I want to launch a new brand, but I need everything to go with it. So I will brand it from the get-go, and then build like website, do all your copy, all the social media stuff as well. I will sort of do the whole bit. So it just have that seamless sort of approach across everything.
Okay. And I think I saw on your website, you tend to work with one business.
I do. Yes. That's my other. Yes, I do literally one client at a time. So I will take on one, and literally then sort of that means I can delve really deeply. And it kind of becomes mind temporary, there's sort of a temporary business almost, because you just absorb as much information as you can to understand, what it wants to do and where it wants to go. So then you can actually deliver the best sort of outcome in everything you do.
So how do you, I always ask guys, how does the business model work? How do you make money?
It's a very good question. It's a very valid point. So I tend to work on, so for my one-on-one work, obviously it's big projects. So they are big projects that, last anywhere between sort of, 9 months, maybe a couple of years. So they are quite long projects.
Right.
But then obviously alongside that, I do teach people how to brand as well. So I do that as another thing as well. So again, I'm tied up, but my knowledge is still out there.
So helping through training courses,
things like that, yeah, courses, so I do micro courses, so again you can sort of dip in and dip out, but put them all together and you can actually then use it to create a brand that you want. So it's a mixture of both, so keeps me out of trouble.
Good. And is this something that you do all on your own? Have you built a team around you?
No, it's just me. So I literally, just a solopreneur, just me. But that's you never know what the future holds to you, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. So when did you? What got you started? How did you get into
this one?
Into this one, yeah.
Okay, so I started this one back in 2020. So yes, it was a classic lockdown move. Okay. But again, this is probably born out of, I've been self-employed since the early 2000s. So this is all it's all my knowledge that's sort of come together into this specific offering.
So what were you doing before then?
Okay, so interestingly, so nobody can see me, can they? So I started back in 2000s. I had a business selling model horses, actually. So very niche, very unusual.
Okay.
Yes, so you won't hear that one every day.
Right, yeah.
So basically, the best way to describe it is imagine Barbie, but with model horses. So you used to buy like the horse, and then you can have the stable and all the accessories and sort of add different things. And so we used to have about sort of 2,500 different products, all related around model horses and different sizes and different shapes and things like that. So yes, we had that for a number of years. We had a team, and we used to travel all around the world to different sort of conventions and model horse events. Yes, sort of.
Gosh, who knew? And
who knew? There you go.
And what got you? What made you decide to change?
That was first business selling model horses from other brands, and then we actually transitioned. We actually started our own brand of models. So we were manufacturing. We had a factory in China. We were retailing those and selling them all over the globe again. But so we did that for about 20 years, I think it was in the end, and it was just a case of just needed a change really. So that was the sort of the transition to the one we're in now.
Very good, very good.
Yeah,
so tell us about some of the milestones then, and what have you learned? What have you brought to this new business then?
I think obviously this one is bringing all that knowledge from previous, how to. I think those businesses, because they were niche, you learn a lot of how to, really understand your customer, what they want, what they're looking for, and to really sort of drill down on that sort of specifics, which again is obviously branding, how that applies. So it's all those sort of skills that I've sort of now brought forward into sort of the modern thing. But always all the way through it is like, if you have that idea, anything is possible. I think if you had an idea and it's viable, I can brand it and I can do it. So that's
and okay. So let's play devil's advocate for a bit. I've got why wouldn't I just spend all my time developing a brilliant product and making sure that's absolutely brilliant, and then if it's good enough, surely it'll just fly off the shelves, won't it?
Well, no, I think it's this kind of reverse thing, isn't it? It depends if the people want to buy it and if they need it, that is it, isn't it? It's very easy to get stuck in that sort of thing of, developing a product, but without looking outside, it's very easy to get caught, be caught in that cycle. I think it is a case of just looking, isn't it? Looking ahead, is there a market out there? Who is going to buy it? Do they really, really want it? Or is there something else already out there? What makes it different? It's all those sort of questions that you always need to run through just to sort of, keep that idea alive. Because you might be a case of, you're developing that product, but there could be something similar already out there. So you just need to maneuver slightly to make it different. Maybe, if I did this, then it would be different. And then it creates that different need and want actually out in the marketplace.
So we're talking quite strategic elements here, really. So what sort of things do you think we should be thinking about then as a business owner from a strategy, from maybe a positioning perspective? What sort of some of the questions we need to be asking ourselves?
It's really clear is understanding it is why you're doing it. What's the driver? What's the purpose? Why does it matter? That's a very, very important one, which I think a lot of people do lose sight of. It's very easy to start a business with that, but possibly 3 to 5 years down the line, it might change or sort of. So that's a always good one to keep revisiting why it matters. And then it's the who, isn't it? Who's it for? Who's the customers? What's their problem? What do they need it for? What solution does it solve? Obviously, then the how is then makes it easier. Connecting the two together. That's one of the easier ones, isn't it? But it's usually the why and the who. That's the key ones to understand.
Which if we, we're sort of skirting around the Simon Sinek.
Always start with why. Yeah,
I start with the why. Yeah, aren't we? And it was kind of where I was going with the question about the product, because often we start, and when we're talking to our customers, what he's saying is most of us start with the what it is that we do, don't we? Whereas actually, most of the time, people are interested in our story and the why.
Right.
And the why.
Yes.
So let me ask you that then. I've kind of asked it in a bit of a roundabout way, but let's go back to why are you doing this? Why set up the Brand Artisan?
Why? It's actually very simple, because I was tended to work with clients where they just didn't have all the pieces to the puzzle.
Right.
I'd be asked to do sort of, copywriting for a website, which on the face of it sounds very, very straightforward and very simple. But when you take it on and then realize, well, they haven't done any branding, they don't actually really know who their customers are, they don't actually know really what they're sort of selling or what they're trying to do. And then that's where my why came in. My why is the answer to that problem.
Yeah.
I take it on and make it matter. I connect all the dots together.
And what have you learned? Because I imagine, coming into this in lockdown with a new business, where knowing where to pitch from a pricing point of view for your services must have been a bit tricky. So take us through some of your thinking and what you've learned around pricing services.
Well, obviously, because mine are, I only do one at a time and it's big projects. Obviously, I tend to gravitate towards the upper end of the sort of the scale, really. Okay. And that's I suppose that's naturally goes that way, because it's just the way I work and the way I tend to work. Obviously, if you're going to be doing different things, only parts of for example, if you're just doing copywriting or you're just doing social media, then you're going to have more clients, and then obviously, again, it'd be a different pricing strategy for that as well.
Yeah. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to explore that a little bit more, because that's a choice that you made, and some of us are sitting here thinking, well, do I go down the route of small number of clients and really bespoke services, or do I try and spread my experience a little bit, like the training courses that you're talking about doing? And of course, it's if we're working with one client at a time in particular, then that time for money or money for time aspect is good. We've got to get that balance right. So what was did you go about that in any particular way, or did you just pick a number? It was a bit of air, or
no, it was trial and error, really, because obviously when I started, I was doing more of a small projects, again, juggling more people, and I just didn't like the way it was working, because the problem is you'd have to switch your mindset. Well, I'm on this brand, and this is how they sound, and this is what they want, and then you'd have to switch to another one. Yeah. So that just the switching and trying to maneuver, that does take a lot of effort and brain power, really. And that's why I sort of know, actually, the better way to work is to focus just on one person. Yeah. Yes, it's going to cost more, and it's going to, to find that person is going to be a little bit more complex, but it's possible. I do always think anything is possible. You just need to find the right route to get there. So that's where, but again, it came from sort of a trial and error sort of thing.
And do you have any rules of thumb as to how to go about it? I mean, did you have an amount in mind, for example, that you wanted to be able to earn in a year? Did you do a competitive analysis of everybody else out there that might be doing something similar, or what was your?
I think I tried, but there wasn't very many people out there. That was the thing, and that's sometimes harder because you haven't got that benchmark to sort of, think actually, well, I have more than this or that, because there aren't people out there that I can benchmark against. It's hard to know whether you're in the right realm. But on the other hand, the sky's the limit. So where do you go, isn't it? It's how I think it comes back to branding, isn't it? As long as you can position yourself as to why somebody needs it and what value you bring, what expertise, what's experience, what knowledge, what benefits do they get, you can justify charging a certain amount.
Very good. So in terms of you're obviously running quite a large business before as well with the horse aspect of things and doing your own production. So you mentioned that you had quite a lot of people working for you then. What looking back on it, what lessons did you learn around the people aspects of running a business?
We always operated like a team. It was always a team effort. So everybody was involved, all the decisions. It was a very busy time. I always remember, Christmas, always busy, always something going on, but we always worked to pull as a team. So not like, that I think that's one thing always to sort of remember, when you're working with other people, is everybody has different ideas, different perspectives. So it's good to listen to everybody just to get different points of view.
Yeah.
So what about yourself? Do you have a team as well, or do you?
We have a small team. Absolutely. So how do you foster that team environment? Because lots of people talk about cohesive teams and the power. When you get things working right with the team, that unlocks. Typically, it can unlock the success of the business. How do you go about getting that team culture?
Again, it's all been on the same path to the same journey, isn't it? You have these talks about what's the goal, where are we going? What's the mission? Where are we heading? It comes back to, again, that question of why, isn't it? Why are we doing this? And for us, with the model horses, which sounds daft, but, we wanted to be the leader in that field. We wanted to be that, place that everybody came for that specific sort of model horse or whatever, which sounds weird, but, it happened. You can do it for anything. And we were all on that same sort of page, really. The team we had, they all had that same passion, that same sort of enthusiasm. And we had everybody on that same sort of course. The ship was going in the right direction, really.
Yeah, good. And you mentioned that you made the transition from being basically selling other people's brands to manufacturing your own. Take us through some of the thinking behind that and some of the lessons that you learned.
So that came out from, we obviously throughout the years, we always ran the business very close to our customers. So we would always listen to them. We'd always take on feedback, ask them for, what products they'd like in the future. There was always a two-way conversation between them. And throughout those sort of years when we were selling other people's brands, they'd always ask for specific models of British breeds of horses, which at that time never existed in the marketplace.
Okay.
So we kept, taking all this feedback and, information on and giving it to the manufacturers at the time, but nobody did anything about it. So we got to the point that we thought, right, we'll do it ourselves then. That's fine. We will do it. And so that's when we actually crowdfunded to start. So we raised the money to get the new second phase of the business off the ground. So we did that by crowdfunding again. And that comes back, success of that comes back to, being very honest and open with our audience as to why we wanted to do it, what the outcomes were and all the sort of the pitfalls and all the things, setbacks, they were in the loop throughout. So it was almost like, again, they were on that journey with us, literally, helping us to get there, cheering us on and, where, when things didn't go right, we all sort of, consoled each other and found our way through. So.
Yeah, good. And it's funny, you literally the next question was going to be how did you approach the cash differently when you had to go about manufacturing your own? Because obviously it's a different model.
Different model completely, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So crowdfunding is something that I know other people will be thinking about, and some will know more than others. What you've already mentioned the importance of having an audience that's coming along with you and can see what you're trying to do and understand it and buy into it. What else did you learn about from a crowdfunding aspect, looking back on it?
I think for crowdfunding, I'd always recommend for somebody just always sort of work in a contingency because it's only because obviously, for crowdfunding, especially for us manufacturing, you had to sort of forward think, okay, well, this is how much it's going to cost, or this is what's going to happen, but there was always something that comes down the line that you never sort of have planned for, or have not worked into the sort of the budget. So I think that's what I would sort of probably suggest to somebody, just to run the numbers and just double check everything before you do it. But then again, on the other hand, I'll just tell anybody just to do it, just to give it, if you have got an idea and an audience behind you, and you're all on that same thing, gosh, yeah, go for it and see what happens. That's the exciting thing. And
what were your crowdfunders getting in return? What were they getting the first choice of the new model?
Yes, no, we were we almost not pre-selling, but they all had a model ready and waiting. So yes, it was like a pre-sale, in almost in a weird way. I think the top of my head, I think the lowest crowd one pledge level was about £10, but the top one I think was a couple of thousand, I think it was, and that's when they could sort of specify that they wanted, they could have a model in the range, so they could tell us what color they wanted to be and name it and things like this. So different levels for different options, and again it was quite nice because it brought together our customer base. We had a customer base all over the world. And it was nice to be able to bring them all together onto one project, they all helped, little bits chipped in, and made it all possible.
Very good. So what are some of the differences about what you're doing now? Because obviously very different kind of business. Yeah. And what do you love about what you're doing now?
I think now it's just the less, obviously back then it was more product based. So it was just, I think it's just sometimes just the logistics of things, when you're product based, it's all about the space in the warehousing and, dispatching things and, that sort of side. Whereas now it's just me, me and my tons of notebooks and, things like that. So it's a different model completely, and there are days I think you think, I do like products and I do like retail. So I'm dabbling with some ideas of possibly getting back into something like that. Who knows? But yes, that's just me. But it's nice to have to have the experience of both. To have sort of have done one and, done retail and done product. And then this is the polar opposite, I think. It's like having a minimalist house versus like the maximism, of like literally crammed in everywhere. So it's the opposites of the two. Is quite interesting.
Very good. And we were talking a little bit before we pressed record. But how do you manage your time? Because I imagine now, with a client that you're working very, very closely with, very deep in that relationship, how do you separate your time? How do you manage your time so that you're not constantly working on that client?
It depends, you see, because if a client comes to me and said, I always will ask them, what's the timeline? Do you need this for a specific time, or is there an aim of any sort? Because I always will try and if they say, well, I need it for X day, I'll try and plan it backwards so that we can obviously achieve that. But when we obviously work one-on-one, it is like a co-creation thing. So you're both in it, building this sort of thing, this blob into something tangible, from the bottom up. So you do find yourself, you are quite immersed in it, and it does sort of become all you think about. But what I tend to do with clients is I will, I'll sort of write a schedule of like, when we're working on this, you know, when we'll catch up and all these sorts of things. So I'm a bit of a planner. I love a plan. So I will literally set it all out, and so we've got a clear sort of route of how things are going to be done and how it's going to be achieved.
Brilliant. And how do you find your clients? You know, what works for you?
A blend of everything. I mean, I get sort of referrals from obviously previous clients or repeat clients, you know, where they've done one project and then there's another one on the go, which is always quite exciting. But just a blend of just different ways, actually. Sometimes it's just a conversation with somebody, and you need someone knows somebody else. Again, it's just, you never know where the next one will come from, really. Very
good. And what's the ultimate aim with the business, with the Brand Artisan? You know, is there a legacy you want to leave, somewhere you want to get the business to? What's the...
It's both, really. I think the legacy, which I do like, you know, as a brand, I think it's just a different way, a different approach to branding. I think I always laugh because I think branding almost has a branding issue itself, because it's always associated, like we said, just with a logo, or, you know, you say branding and people think, oh my God, you know, big budget, you know, marketing agencies, or these complex terms that nobody understands. But when you actually strip it back, it's actually very simple. If you just work through, you know, the different pieces you need, it actually becomes quite easy to do. So I think that's kind of the aim. It's just a different way, you know, and also just getting people to think, you know, to stop and think about it, you know, brand well, and you only have to do it once and it will just last a lifetime. It really does build a strong brand. You know, as I always say, a brand is the foundation on what a business is built. It's also the fuel that powers it, and basically it's the feeling that your audience connects to. So if you get it right, it's magic.
Great. Can you give us is there an example of a client you've worked with, of some of the kinds of things that you can take us through? Give us a mental picture of what you did with them.
So yeah, different ones. So I've had somebody where I've taken, literally they've come with me with an idea. They wanted to they were like a nutritionist, and they wanted to literally start, you know, hadn't got anything. So we took the time to sort of obviously pinpoint and understand the brand to start with, you know, going through the whole process of, you know, why and what and who and why, and putting that all together. And then the fun bit, you know, about the visual side, all the logos and the imagery, and then moving on to like the more sort of copy and how that sounds, the words to use, the fun bit, the bits I love. And then after that, it then became obviously to like building the website, you know, and putting all that copy together, and figuring out then a marketing plan of how you're going to, you know, connect with the audience. Bear in mind, because you're starting at one, you know, there is nobody. So, okay, well, what's the strategy and where we're going to go? And then again, it's just building that, just constantly, it's constantly a layering process. You know, you literally are just building that trifle. I do like that concept. So again, yeah, then it's like the social media platforms, again, building the content, you know, adding that on as well, and then taking it further. So doing, you know, PR pitches, or getting in touch with, you know, sort of journalists and sort of papers, or, you know, connecting with people on LinkedIn. Again, we put together a whole strategy of how she wanted to sort of roll it out as well. So.
Correct. Very good. So if you and I are having a conversation in a few years' time, maybe 5 years' time, what has to have happened for you to count those years as successful?
I think that's interesting. I always say this: the success is an interesting word, because the definition for everyone is slightly different. Yeah. You know, for some people, success is, you know, just having enough to, you know, be able to put the lights on, and, you know, that's a good job done. Whereas other people, isn't it? It's having a multinational brand, you know, all over the world with retail shops. So it's a funny word, success. I think for me, it's just I just like to help brands come to life. And help people sort of realize their dreams, really, because a lot of people come to me thinking it's never possible, and I go, no, it is. We can do it. You know, we need to just figure out a plan, and we can make it happen.
Brilliant.
I suppose it's a question for you. What's your definition of success?
Well, ours is you may or may not know, but only 4% of businesses in this country scale beyond 10 employees. So what we're about is trying to move that 4% to 5%. So move it by 1%, or from the 4% to 5%, and that represents 60,000 businesses that we need to work with in order to do that. And the reason that we want to do that is really it's at above that level where people create a business which is likely to give them the kind of lifestyle that they want and be a sustainable business beyond just them. Because typically up to that point, it's driven by the individual. And if the individual stops, the business stops. So if they want to create long-term residual income, for example, then and options for stepping back at some point, then that's important. So that's our mission is to help 60,000 businesses to scale up beyond 10 employees.
See, that's a very good why. There you go.
Good. So you're all right for a couple of quick fire questions?
Of course, yeah. More the merrier. No, I'd love a question.
Good. So if you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give the young Becky?
Oh, it's a tough one. Because I left school at 16, so I went straight into business from there. So advice, probably just, take more chances, dream bigger. I think that's the answer. It's very easy to sort of stay in the comfortable bit, but get comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's probably the summary there. Good.
You've got a lot of books and things behind you. So what books or other learning resources would you recommend to entrepreneurs?
I think read as much as you can, but not necessarily in the industry that you're interested in. I think, try something different, take it from a different industry, or, just pick up something different. Because what I tend to find is that, like a polymath, you can actually apply different sort of things from another industry. You can apply it to make it work. So don't limit just to one sort of niche. Try everything.
Brilliant.
And the more the merrier.
Good.
Yes.
Any apps or bits of tech that you rely on?
Old school, I have to say. I love a bit of paper, old-fashioned diary, but I do use things like Asana and some things just to keep me making sure I've got everything on track. But yes, I'm a bit blend. I'm a blend of both. I'm that generation. What about yourself? Is there anything you recommend? I suppose I should ask this way.
Well, we use a few, and we use things like Monday. We have a CRM that we use, GoExcelo, which is really really useful. We've developed our own app around 90-day planning, which is Smart 90. But yeah, so we have a few. But it's always interesting to ask other business owners to see what they do, see what they got on their phones, really. So some of it's not always business related. Sometimes it's things like Strava and whatever else from the way that they manage their downtime. But it's interesting to find out. And who would you say has had the most influence on you as a business leader?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I don't sort of say anybody specific, if I'm honest. I think I tend to sort of take inspiration from different people, and sometimes just everyday things, really. I think the only one I sort of always think of who had a way with words, which is to think what you always strive for, which is sounds daft, was Winston Churchill, but only because the way he could take words and sort of maneuver them into something really powerful, I think was just a skill that I wouldn't mind, just having a little bit of, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Well, it's been absolutely fascinating talking with you, Becky. Thank you for coming on to ScaleUp Radio today. If people would like to reach out to you or find out more about the Brand Artisan, what's the best way for them to do that? Yes, the best way is just to visit my website. So it is www.thebrandartisan.co.uk. And I offer anybody that if you've got any branding questions or anything, that I'll give everybody a call. So I'm more than happy to help anybody, even if it's just a weird question or how do you do this or why is this? I'm always there to help out. Brilliant. Becky, thank you very much indeed for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today. No worries. Thank you very much, Kevin, for my time. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.